All right, we're here from our next video. I got Sam and Jeff with me, and today we are going to talk about if we could pick one player from each position in the history of the NBA, who we would choose. And this was a really difficult task for us, because we don't know much, but we did the research and we picked our five. And so we're going to start with the oldest, and Sam's going to tell us who his point guard is for his all-time team.
Okay, so we were also going to specify a year.
Yes.
Okay, so you know that I'm a Celtic homer. I love the Celtics. But in 1987, Magic Johnson took his game to a whole new level and really took over the playoffs. And of course, they took the Celtics in five. And granted, the Celtics were mostly injured. They weren't the 86 team, but still, Larry Bird statistically probably had one of his best playoff series during that time. And but Magic just outshined everybody, and so he's my point guard pick for the '87 version of Magic Johnson.
Nice. Jeff, who'd you pick for your point guard?
Well, I think Sam's on absolutely right. Magic was incredible. Um, I actually picked John Stockton, and I picked him on that 90-91 year, mostly because that was his best assist year of his career. And for me, a point guard should be that facilitator. He averaged like 12, I think, for his career. I think that year I think he was averaging about 17 points a game, but he was averaging 14, 15 assists a game, and that's what I want from my point guard. And I went with Stockton because he is so durable, never misses games, and he would set a screen on anyone. He didn't back down. Obviously the all-time leading steals, so a great defender. A little smaller than Magic, obviously, but I went with John Stockton.
You could go wrong there.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
I
So
think when I was discussing this with John, it was a toss-up between those two for me.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Well,
it
and
was for
what's
me as
funny?
well.
Yeah, what's funny is, you consider the other ones, Isaiah had a great career in that, right? But I don't think he had that toughness like Stockton did, even like Magic did. Magic was incredibly, tough in the game. So I went away from that. And obviously you could go with, Jason Kidd, Chris Paul, who's the other one? Steve Nash,
So many.
great guys. But for me, I think it's the two. Stockton or Magic, and I went with Stockton.
Yeah. And that's the struggle that I had too, was Stockton and Magic. And then I just thought about it, and I'm just going, I have to give the nod to Magic, because not only did I hate him to begin with because he was just so dang good, but then I learned to love him after I started getting better at ball and realized just how amazing he is. I mean, he was just absolutely amazing in every category. He blew me away. And I
Well,
picked,
he could have. Well, he not could have. He did play all five positions.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and at the time you look at for along those lines, that to interrupt you here, you look at some of these greats, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West going back, and they're all like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'2", all this, right? And then you got Magic at 6'9", and it was first time this big man was playing point guard and can move like that.
Yeah.
You're just
absolutely
incredible.
amazing. Okay, so I did pick the 83-84 Magic Johnson. And the reason I did that was just because his shooting percentage was amazing. His assists were amazing. Um, Everything was amazing. His stats, that was easily the best stats. And he was averaging 17.6 points a game, kind of like how you were saying with Stockton. Um, it was just amazing. He was absolutely amazing. And he could fill in at any position, like Sam was saying earlier. If you were missing a 2 spot, a 3 spot, a 4 spot, and even a 5 spot, he could play it. And that's what made him absolutely incredible. Okay, so we got 2 votes for Magic and 1 for Stockton. Sorry, little white boy. All right. You're 2 guard.
I'll be honest, you could convince me with Stockton. I was a real fan. Shooting guard. There's only one, and that's Michael Jordan. And
Yeah.
I didn't pick his best statistical year. Jordan definitely had an evolution to his game that, he being, well, what would Bird say? It was like God came down and suited up, and he was Michael Jordan. I mean, he could always drop points whenever he wanted. But it was 1988 is when Jordan started rounding out his statistics and started elevating his teammates. He was always there, knocking down 30, 50, I think 63 was a big number once.
Yeah, the one against
Anyway,
Boston.
he was always knocking down the points. But in that 63-point game, it was the Celtics that won.
Yeah.
It wasn't Chicago. And
Yep.
Jordan was taking, 40 to 60% of the team's shots. Well, in 1988, he really elevated his game to a point where he was turning his teammates into all-stars. And to me, that's the sign of a great player.
Oh, yeah.
A player who's really come into his own, because they had 3 all-stars on that team that year. And one of them was, of all people, Bill Cartwright, it was the most painful center I've ever saw. But, you could be an all-star when you got Michael Jordan cleaning up your messes.
He had the most painful free throw.
Oh, boy. But anyway, so that's my pick for shooting guard.
All right, Jeff, what about you? Which Michael Jordan did you pick?
Well, I'm gonna start off by saying, well, I picked, Reggie Miller, but no, I didn't. There's only one shooting guard ever to pick in the history of the game, and that is Michael Jordan. I agree with you. I like his game as he got older and the teams evolved and that. So I picked a later. I picked that 95, 96 Michael Jordan. What's funny, you say his points were down that year. His assists were up, just a couple, right? But his points was down by 1 point. It's like, but he was doing more. He was more of a willing passer. He also had some better players around him. But forget about the players around him. A lot of people say that's why he won those championships. And you got to have great teams, but you got to have great players.
Yes.
And Michael Jordan is the pinnacle of all great players, I think.
Yeah.
And so for me, I like that later year, mostly because he could still, I don't know what the right term would be, maybe athletic, right? Athleticism. I always call it, Michael Jordan, somebody, right? He could just take over a game. And that's what he did, like all his first years in his career, even his first few championships, he would just out athleticism. And then as it went on, he was a better 3-point shooter. He was a better passer. He was a better rebounder. His game just.
He was a better clutch player.
Yeah.
I mean, he was always a clutch player, but I mean, that shot against the Jazz guy, I can't remember his name.
Russell.
Bill Russell. Yeah.
Right.
You got the right guy. Anyway, I mean, you could claim push off and all that, but he hit the dang shot.
Right.
But even he admits now that it was a push off.
But you know what? In a pressure situation, to shoot that shot and make it, I'm sorry. You're one of the greatest ever.
You do
I
what you're
agree.
gonna do.
Yeah.
So
So for me, it was that later, but any year of him, you couldn't go wrong.
yeah. Well, and I also picked Michael Jordan, of course, and for me it was the 91 Michael Jordan. And I believe that was the first year they won the championship. And it was because he matured, because he evolved. Um, he was great early on, and you can't, I mean, there's no denying that. But as he matured and became the leader that turned his team into a machine, it was insane.
Yeah.
He mentored Scottie Pippen, and Scottie Pippen was another Michael Jordan. It was just absolutely amazing. And then you add, people like Horace Grant, as his forward. You had, I believe that year it was the funny free throw guy. But it's just, but they always had that lone star little white boy, like Paxson, you know,
Paxson.
whether it was Kerr or Paxson, you know, but it was perfect, which is brings me off topic, but which is why it amazes me that no team picked up Jimmer Fredette, because he would have been that role and would have been perfect in it. They don't expect him to run the game. They don't expect him to, blow the doors off anybody. They just expect him to be a spot up shooter, which is what Fredette did so well. I mean, he created his own shots, but I'm getting on. I don't know why we're talking about Fredette because I brought it up, but Michael Jordan definitely is my pick for the guard, and I wish Fredette would have had a chance to play with a team like that. At the time, it would have been somebody like Miami. Just stick him in there. He would have brought off the pressure off all the other players. That's just my word for Fredette because I like Fredette.
I did too. But listen to these stats. Because I listed them all out for the different years. But in 88, 35 points per game average, 5.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists. That ended up being one of his best years for assists. And that's when he started being a real team leader. 3.2 steals per game, 1.5 blocks per game, 54% field goal percentage. NBA MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, scoring champion, steals leader, all NBA first team, all defensive first team. Of course, 91 is when he won his first championship. Back in those days, like you said, you can't go wrong with, it was 1991 when he got his first championship, but it also was, they picked up Scottie Pippen, and they did have a serviceable shooting guard back then. Didn't they also have Rodman at that point? Or was Rodman a Piston at that?
91, I don't know.
I believe he's a Piston.
Yeah, I don't think he was with them yet.
Well, anyway, I mean,
because they had
all I'm saying is
Horace Grant, I believe, wasn't it?
Horace Grant, yeah, and yeah, I think Jeff mentioned him. But yeah, I mean, he had a team around him, but you could tell just by listing out the stats, that's when he really came into his own.
Yeah,
he was just minus a team.
Yeah, oh yeah. 91 is when the doors just were blown wide open.
Yeah.
It also helped that, Bird and Magic retired. Although he did beat Magic for the first championship. So
yeah,
that was pretty, but Magic was, on his way out. All right. So now let's move on to our number 3 pick, small forward. Sam?
I'm sorry. I'm just going to be the homer here. There's 2 players in the history of this league that if I had to build a team, starting with number 1 player, there's only 2 I would consider. And, well, I guess there's 3. You can throw Magic in there, but it'd be Magic, Michael, or Larry. And, of those 3, only one is a small forward, and that's what we're picking. So 86 version of Larry Bird, to me, that still just defines professional basketball to me. He was outstanding in every freaking way that you could be outstanding. He, sometimes we forget just how scrappy he was under the hoop. But I can tell you over the last 2 months, I've probably watched every Celtics game of that era that is on YouTube. And the guy he's just the most amazing player to watch I've ever seen in my life. And would probably be the player I would choose to build a team around. So the 86 version, in 1987, he carried them all the way to the finals without a lot of help. 85 was just Magic's year. 84 was Bird's year. And they're just unbelievable forward. I don't even know what else to say. He's just my number one overall. The GOAT.
Yeah. Jeff?
I wholeheartedly agree, and I picked the same year. He was incredible in everything. It's interesting. You do a search for, say, the best small forwards of all time, right? So I'm looking at it here. And it depends on where you look, but they come up with names like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Julius Erving, Scottie Pippen, Elgin Baylor, John Havlicek, Dominic Wilkins, Paul Pierce, James Worthy, some really great players. I mean, Hall of Famers, all of them, right?
Yeah.
But none of them, in my opinion, none of them had what Bird had. And that was that driven, I will win at all costs. I will tell you where I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to go do it. To me, that's a person, like you said, that would be my number one pick to start a team around.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
Well, and of course, I picked Bird as well, of course, naturally. But I actually went with the 84 version of Bird.
Okay.
He can't go wrong with any of them,
Right.
And, one of the things that stands out to me with Larry Bird was that game against Indiana in, when was that? 91?
Yeah, where he hit the floor.
The one where he broke his face. And he left the game in the second quarter. And I thought, okay, all hope is gone. We're going to lose this. And then a few minutes into the third quarter, all of a sudden the crowd just starts erupting and it created confusion on the court. And Bird is coming out of the locker room and he's pulling open his jersey like Superman, his warm-up thing. And the crowd just totally erupted to the point the Pacers had to call a timeout. They were like, okay, this is just too much. And
the Pacers were winning at that point.
Yeah. And Bird came back and just destroyed it. His stats for that game, with a broken face, he shot 63% from the field, 12 for 19 from the field, 7 assists, 9 rebounds, 1 steal. And what's funny is he didn't make a three-pointer. He missed all his three-pointers. But to shoot like that with a broken face, it's just...
And who is that shootout against?
Oh, Chuck Person.
Chuck Person, yep.
And
have you seen the interview with Chuck Person?
But the best scene of that game was when Chuck Person goes in for a drive and Bird goes up with him, comes down with the ball, blocks it, but comes down with the ball. And all while he's falling to the ground is looking and yelling at Chuck Person, like, don't you bring that into me, you son of a...
Yep. Have you seen the interview with Chuck Person about that game?
I'm not.
Person is like, he's like, we had him. We were doing so great that he went down and we're like, we've got this game. And it just, everything was hyped up. And then when he comes back on the floor, Person said even he was like, oh crap, we're done. Right. And sure enough, Bird pulled it out for him.
It was one of the most spiritual moments in basketball history ever.
I kind of understand that. I've had 2 such moments in my entire life where I felt that way about a sporting event. One was the one you just described. Um, and I mean, I was watching on TV. It's not like I was there. I was watching on TV and I felt that. And the other was when BYU played #1 Miami in Provo, and I was in the stands for that. And here, a team that had very low expectations for the year, all of a sudden knocked off the all consensus #1 team in the nation, you know,
Nice.
and Ty Detmer went on to win a few games that we, like the University of Washington game that came after that. It was unbelievable comeback in the fourth quarter. You know, 6 touchdowns in one quarter, if you could imagine that. And it was snowing and miserable out. The stands were empty, but I was sitting there shivering and watching Ty Detmer pull a hat trick. It was amazing. But yeah, that I've only felt that twice, and one was with Bird.
Yeah. It was an amazing moment.
Well, and because of that, what I talked about, that toughness that you would pick him #1 for your team. Tell me what other player would break his cheekbone, go into locker room, and then come back out.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's any.
yeah.
Yep. So
I'm a homer when it comes to Bird. I just am.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of one of these great stories where I was playing a 2-on-2 at the club, and the guy I was playing with was like kicking butt and stuff, and I was kicking butt. These two guys we were playing against were total jerks, and so we were trying hard just to embarrass them. And so it's me and Jeff, and Jeff goes up, and the guy comes down and tries to hit his hand and block his shot, and breaks Jeff's finger. I mean, we're talking like breaks Jeff's finger. And Jeff's like, he's screaming and stuff. And I go over to him, man, are you okay? Are you okay? And he's like, it's broke. And you could see that it was like misaligned and it was going the wrong direction.
Turning purple.
You did not ask me if I'm okay.
At first I did, and then I said, great. Are you gonna finish the game?
Made me so mad
And
that I finished the game.
so he finished the game and he tried to shoot. And of course his finger was
So
that finger.
see this? I
Yeah.
can't point straight. It has a hitch in it. You see that?
But it was so awesome because he tried to shoot, and of course that caused serious pain to him.
Because I signed, they wanted to fuse it. Because I signed and I'm right-handed, I'm like, no, I needed to use it. So this is the best they could give me. So
That's funny.
yeah.
But that was awesome, and we ended up destroying them, and then he went to the doctor. So,
Yeah.
I know about that spirit, that keep going, because I had that spirit. Jeff, we got to keep going.
I hate you.
That was awesome. All right, Sam, your power. This is where we're going to start to differ a little bit.
Yeah.
Power forward, Sam. Who you got?
Well, this one was the hardest one to pick. But again, it came down to who I was comparing it to. You know, I picked the player that, my heart wanted to pick because I'm such a Bird homer. I wanted it to be Kevin McHale because I loved his game. But his game wasn't as multifaceted as other players. And I mean, if I want 35 points, McHale's my guy, But it was a toss-up initially between him and Tim Duncan. And then I started, there's Karl Malone, and there's just a dozen really great all-star power forwards. I mean, watch Ralph Sampson. When he showed up for games, there was rarely anyone better than him. Coupled with that 7'4" frame, he could dribble like a guard and play tough defensive center and I mean, he just was a great player when he showed up. But I kept comparing to Tim Duncan. So I opted for the 03 Tim Duncan. And what I love most about Tim Duncan is he just showed up for work every day. He came in, there was no bravado. I don't even think he trash talked. He just came in and destroyed people. And his stats were incredible that year.
Yeah.
The only other serious consideration I gave was to Karl Malone. And that's because Malone could defend the likes of Shaq and still be the third leading scorer of all time in the NBA.
Yeah.
But I gave the nod to Duncan.
That's a great choice. Jeff, who'd you pick?
Well, I struggled with that too. You know, and if you think about it, I mean, think about all the power forwards, and they're all like, 7 foot or 6'11", 6'10", like this, and then all of a sudden you have Charles Barkley in that mix at 6'6", and it's like, so that just shows how amazing he was at that spot, right? It was crazy, right? But I actually I went between three guys, and for me, only because he was a matchup kind of a nightmare, but Dirk Nowitzki was so tall, so talented, and he was so hard to guard. And at that little one-legged step back shot that he did that you could not touch, and so I kind of debated.
Positions.
Yeah, I kind of debated on him, but I went down to the last two, and that is same with you, Tim Duncan and Karl Malone, and it was almost like flip a coin, right? But I definitely went with Tim Duncan just because over Karl Malone, only because of his nickname, and it's true in the game, the big fundamental. He was so sound and secure that I mean, any of these guys you can't go wrong with, but he was so just even keel, always on spot on his points and his rebounds, and I went with that
mistake.
And I went that same year, that 03 season, because that was his best block output. And so he's going to get his points, but he's going to get his rebounds. But now he's got, about 4 blocks a game, I think it was.
Right?
And so that's why I went with Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
I
Well,
didn't even notice that, but you're right.
well, what's funny is we all picked Tim Duncan. Okay.
Yeah.
I went with the 2002 version, but the reason I loved Tim Duncan was that he came into the league. David Robinson, who was a stud in his own right, took him under his wing, and they played together. And it only took, 2 years for it to be the Duncan show. And to show the kind of player that Robinson was, he said, okay. And Duncan led the team. And David Robinson gave everything he could to help the team and to help Robinson, or to help Duncan. And oh my gosh, that was a magnificent duo. I absolutely love that. But I love Tim Duncan. One thing that, I did a lot, playing ball, is I used the board a lot more than almost any other player I've seen. And it's like, I worked the board. I could shoot threes off the board. I could do, I worked the board. Tim Duncan was amazing on the board. He could shoot off, he could bank it from anywhere, and purposely, banking it. And he just was so smooth. He was so smooth, inside and out, on the post, on the shots, driving, anything. And he would use the glass so much. And you don't see a lot of players do that.
Yeah.
And I loved him. I loved watching him.
Yeah.
Just amazing player.
Well, you're right about him and Robinson together. Maybe one of the best, center forward duos ever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Elijah Sampson. Again, you have that problem with Sampson not showing up half the time. But
yeah,
when Sampson was on, those two were unstoppable.
Yep. All right, down to the big man. Who'd you pick for your big man, Sam?
Well, I went all over the place for this, and you can make a case. I think I told you, I watched the Christmas Day massacre of the Knicks, the massacre of the Celtics, and
Yeah,
Ewing was just like ascendant in that game. Like no center I've ever seen play took over like he did. It was and if he could have consistently held that level of performance, he would easily have gone down. Some people say Wilt Chamberlain's the best offensive center ever, but I think Ewing could have rivaled that if he had maintained that level of play.
yeah,
I watch all kinds of centers. There's so many good ones. I mean, Robert Parrish had an incredible career, longest playing forward or center ever. Most
yeah,
games. But at the end of the day, it was Kareem. It just, every center, even Will Chamberlain, I compared to Kareem. And when he played for the Bucks, Big O was the point guard at that point. And Oscar Robinson was just a whiz on the court, but he wasn't. He didn't elevate all the other players like the greats. I mean, he's great, but like Magic or Bird or Jordan, and uh, Lou Alcindor, as he was known back then, that was that he just dominated. Or his stats were unbelievable for any
yeah,
center of any time. But in 1980, when he was traded to the Lakers and he became their point center, and one of the reasons I picked the 87 Magic Johnson instead of the 80 Magic Johnson was because the true leader of that team at that time was Kareem. His stats were amazing, took him to the championship. He was the MVP. He was just everything a great center should be.
yeah. It was.
Yeah.
Jeff, what'd you pick?
It's funny is looking at these centers. I find it interesting that their points are all. I mean, Russell or Wilt Chamberlain, has probably the highest, 30 points a game, that kind of thing. But his rebounds were always up. And you look at all these centers, their rebounds are always up. They are, 10, 15, 20 rebounds a game kind of thing. And then I think you can't go wrong with Kareem because that skyhook was unstoppable. Although I did love growing up, I had a picture of Bird blocking that. Like they say, Bird couldn't get out. He actually was blocking one of Kareem's skyhooks.
Yep.
So I love that picture that I used to have. But anyway, I mean, some people say Shaq because he's so dominant, but I think I might steal a little bit of John's thunder here. I would stay away from Shaq because you could just foul him and he can't make free throws. So he's a liability in clutch time, especially, right? And then Patrick Ewing was amazing. I loved Kareem, but I went actually with someone a little different, maybe not different, but I went with the Hakeem Olajuwon. And I think the biggest thing for me, he's over 20 points a game, 10 rebounds a game. But he also is the all-time leading block. He leads the whole NBA in that everyone. And I picked the 93-94 year because he was almost 4 blocks a game. Now you couple that with Tim Duncan, who was about 3 blocks a game. Bird has a couple, it's just like you go down the line. Stockton's the only one who was, 0.5 a game or something like that. But now you're getting these great defensive blocks and stops and steals along with all these high output, scores. And so, I mean, obviously we're picking the best of the best. You can't go wrong with that.
Right.
So I picked Hakeem really for his defense, but his offense, he was revolutionary, and his footwork and what he used to do was crazy. I loved watching. I hated him, especially when he played, Boston or something. But guess what? He's an amazing player. So that's why I picked him.
You can't go wrong.
It's a great pick. Now, my pick was Patrick Ewing, and I went with let me see, what year was that? The 89 Patrick Ewing. And in that year, let me see, he averaged, shooting percentage 55%, which is amazing, averaging 28.6 points a game. His stats were amazing. Ewing was one of the few players that I followed all the way through college. And I loved him in college. He was so dominant. It was just amazing. And then he gets to the pros and didn't take him long at all. His first year was great. And then all of a sudden he just had some dominant years that were just amazing. And had he been able to keep that up, he would be in everybody's conversation of the greatest center ever.
I agree.
But unfortunately, he burnt out. He hit that high mark, held it for a couple of years, and then just gradually declined. And
Although he was a great mid-range, straight-up shooter.
Yeah, he was.
A lot of his points, people think that he was a monster around the basket, and he was.
Yeah.
But like Karl Malone, he was popping 15-footers all the time. And
no, he had range. He was a decent passer, a great rebounder. He could do everything. I loved Ewing.
Yeah. There's so many you can mention though, in that vein.
Oh yeah. Greg Kite.
So I wanted to shout out though for George Mikan, and only for one reason, right? So they say he was undersized. He's still 6'10", right?
Right.
But every player, whether they know it or not, does the George Mikan drill, the Mikan drill. So it's the right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right? And that's where it came from, was George Mikan could shoot go either way, right or left, and just off the glass. And it was amazing. So shout out to George Mikan. He's not my pick, but
Good job, George.
Another, there's two other players I considered. One, I gave you the clue, John. For every season he played more than 60 games, he has a championship ring to show for
it. Who was that?
Bill Walton.
He couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
He just had peanut butter for ankle bones.
That was a player you loved to love, but you hated to love him because you're going to be let down.
Well, if you watch the 79 Trailblazers or you watch 86 Celtics, what you saw was a great center.
Yeah.
And in 86, he was a contender for the MVP, even though he was the sixth man. He ended up getting the sixth-man award, but of course, Bird got the MVP award.
Yeah.
But the other one that was amazing is Moses Malone. He was the scrappiest player. He was amazing.
Isn't Malone the all-time rebound leader?
I don't think so. Wilt Chamberlain was number one.
Oh.
Bill Russell. Bill Russell's also another candidate.
Oh,
Kareem
Moses
Hayes, Moses Malone, number 5. Tim Duncan, number 6. And that's another thing, people are going to look at the gray hairs on us and go, yeah, you guys are, living our heads aren't in the NBA today. NBA today is a joke. There's no defense. You got to love Curry. He's out there popping shots, but nobody's defending him. He's just out there, they're living and dying by the 3-point shot. Yeah. They have these amazing scoring averages because nobody plays defense anymore. You I was going to say something really derogatory, but you know, the refs blow the whistle every time somebody thinks about fouling,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just not the same game. And that's
No.
why I told John, I said, if one of you pick LeBron James, even in your top 10, I'm going to scream.
Oh, no, no chance there.
I wouldn't pick him just because he seems to fold in all the pressure situations and then he flops on every other play.
Exactly.
It's like I just can't stand him.
But then he goes around playing the victim all the time, which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Right,
While proclaiming he's the GOAT.
Yeah, exactly.
right.
By the way, in that top number 8 position is Robert Parrish.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, here it is right here. Moses Malone, most offensive rebounds ever.
I believe that.
So offensively, that's where I read it.
So between him and we talked about him earlier, crazy guy,
Rodman.
Rodman. Yeah, I mean those two were amazing offensive rebounders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Malone backed it up with an incredible ability to score
Yeah.
and defend. He was strong as heck. And so
And knock people out and give people stitches.
exactly. But I'll tell you what, I mean, I think the more interesting conversation is not our top 5. I think the more interesting conversation would be the backups.
Yeah.
Who do you round out? You know, who's the other 7 players you put on your team? That would be the more interesting conversation to me.
Well, we'll have to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe a follow-up of what's your bench.
To finish off a team. That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because, you know, like a power forward, you know, there were 3 in my head that just, you know, if I had a roster of 12 and I could pick those 3, they would be my locks, you know. No questions asked. Shooting guard is where it gets interesting for me when you start talking depth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good choices there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you know, the starter is not really a choice.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, I despise today's NBA. But can you imagine Curry backing up Jordan? How that would change the interior defense of any team you're playing?
Well, and then it raises the question though, could Curry do what he does now back in like the 80s? I mean, you stick the glove on Curry. You know,
Right.
you stick Jordan on Curry. You stick Pippen on Curry.
See, that's it. Is, you know, they just don't play defense like that.
Yeah.
You know, and then you talk about, I mean, I guess Fredette's fair game. I mean, he did play 3 years in the pros, you know, but what kind of backup would he bring in a game with that caliber of player?
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
shooting half-court shots.
Think about Michael Jordan and who you think is the closest kind of to that and kind of pattern his game after Michael Jordan. So you can imagine Kobe Bryant backing up Michael Jordan.
Oh,
amen. Yeah.
It would be crazy.
Although I had Kobe backing up Magic.
Yeah, you could.
Stockton would be my 3rd guard. Those 3 best in the league.
Yeah.
Well,
I think about Stockton and Kobe, but
think about it. We've seen kind of what a great dream team would do in the original dream team. They just destroyed everyone.
Yep.
So
that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
My favorite NBA poster.
Yeah.
I loved it when they were going down and Jordan threw the ball to Bird and the defender wasn't up on him. And Jordan just starts yelling at the defender.
It wasn't Jordan. It was Magic.
No, it's Jordan is yelling it. And he said, do you not know who you're playing against?
Yeah.
That's the Bird.
Uh, and they fed him. He got
Yeah.
9 3-pointers in a row until the guy came up on him.
Yeah, it was awesome. But,
That's funny.
no, the dream team was just absolutely amazing. That was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, they had Ewing. Ewing
Yeah.
was on your dream team.
Yep.
In fact, I think he was the starting center. Or was Olajuwon? No, it wasn't Olajuwon. Was it? I think it was.
Was it?
I don't remember.
Wasn't Ewing the starting and Robinson the backup?
Oh, maybe it was David Robinson.
And
I think I don't remember who started. They changed the lineup a little bit here and there, but then when it got serious, they kind of stuck with the same group.
yeah, that was so awesome. Oh, I loved the dream team.
I'll tell you what, I did watch the NBA Finals this year because the Eastern Western Conference Finals and then the Finals, just because I kind of got into it, and then it reminded me of why I don't like the NBA, right? But I will say this: the one I wanted to watch in the West and then the Finals was actually Wemby. And oh my gosh, that guy has all the makings, all the talent, all the size to be like this all-time great, right? I don't think he will be mentioned in that because he has a very bad attitude, a defeatist attitude.
Yeah.
When they won the West, he just hugged his own guys and cried, didn't shake hands with anyone, nothing. When he lost to the Knicks, they just walked off the court.
Yeah.
It's like, Brunson went immediately over to their bench and shook hands with the coach and was looking for players, and they all just walked off. And I'm just like, that the all-time greats, you notice what they do. They give you everything they have, and then they shake your hand.
Yeah.
So, but he's an incredible talent. That how he changes the game defensively when he's in, like it's amazing. But it also reminded me of why I stopped watching the NBA.
Yeah.
Well, except for Bird and Lambeer. Now,
Right.
Bird was very vocal. He will tell you to this day he hates him and will not talk to him.
But
Well,
you know what? A lot of players feel that way about Lambeer.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
No, because he tried to hurt people. I mean, he
Yeah.
tried to literally hurt them.
Oh, he admits that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
So Bird says he hated him then, he hates him now. They ask him, well, what if he apologized to you? He says, I wouldn't talk to him. So
yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
All right, well, we need to wrap this up because we only have 4 minutes left on here. So this has been our top 5 players of all time. Obviously, we kind of have the same mindsets in a lot of things, but that's kind of interesting to look at all the different players and talk about this. And we could talk about basketball for hours and hours and hours. Talk about games, talk about players, talk about playing. Obviously, I mean, it's just basketball is one of our favorite subjects. So if you made it this far, cool. Give it a like and a subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you later.